primarily where I want to start is showing you what kind of resources have been added to Tuesday's section. And these are going to be what I'm going to be referencing in my lesson for you today. So by the end of the demo, I'll give you code that you can copy and paste and adjust as necessary, okay? I won't do that the entire semester, but while we're making sure we get some of the stuff I want you using all the time, I'm more than happy to give you a little bit of a starting point that you can customize to your specific needs, okay? What we're actually doing today is just adding a little bit more detail to our Wikipedia pages, remembering that those are due tomorrow by midnight. Excuse me. And at the end of today, I'll also show you how to zip your web pages again so that you can submit those to Canvas if you're already done. And we have work time on it tomorrow too, so you don't have to finish it today. Just saying, if you are ready to turn it in, I'll show you how to do that. So if you look right here, you're going to see the code that I demoed for 5th period yesterday, as well as their video. It's a little bit on the longer side because I have a lot to share with y'all real quick. But I want to go over Flexboxes and FlexChildren because it's the easiest way to start making your pages more responsive, and you get to add a little bit more of that personal styling that I've been mentioning quite a bit as our web pages get more advanced. I don't have a PowerPoint today. I am sorry. I will have one tomorrow with any additional resources that we might need. But today and yesterday did not have a PowerPoint because we've been busy. Okay, so at its core, a Flexbox is very simply a container. You're going to see this is project 2 from the other period. It's very simply a container with some default rules that make it behave a little bit more like the websites that you're used to. Taking your documents from, taking your websites from just black text on a white page, just default stuff, and actually starting to position our things around a little bit and making them behave a little bit more advanced, okay? I'm gonna open up your project folder because this is 5th periods. I'm gonna go to File and then Open Folder right here. Look into my OneDrive, and I want to look for Blakeney Project 2 from the 9th of, what is this? Not October, March. Right there, and I'm going to select the folder, and this should be the example that we used like last week before I went on my field trip, right? Let's run this and see what we're currently working with. I'll just use Chrome real quick. It's just a bunch of text on some pages, and we have them linked across one another. I don't know why this one's asking for translation, but this was what I showed you like the week of the 9th while I was here. And then we had the Friday off. When you're creating a Flexbox, at the most starting level is you need something in your HTML that's going to contain the FlexChildren, okay? This is remembering back to some vocab words like block level and inline level. Block level create a whole new line each time you call them, so things like paragraphs, headers, divs, which is what I'm going to use as my example here in a second. And then inline elements like anchors or images or the span element, those are all going to line up with each other and only take up the required amount of space. What I'm going to start with is very simply on a new empty line, just the letters div, okay? What I've been showing you throughout this class so far is a much longer version. You don't have to go shift comma div, shift period, shift comma slash div. You don't have to do all those steps. I'm showing you a shortcut now because you've had the experience of putting together those elements, okay? If I type just the name of an element, like a div, without any shift commas, I can hit enter, and it's gonna automatically convert it into the type of HTML that's necessary, okay? And I'm gonna hit enter one more time, and that's gonna give me this div container right here where I can put some stuff. All right? Do you have a question?
Yeah, so
Okay.
like, am I going to need to put any Flexbox in? Do I have to?
You need at least one, and I'll check and make sure you have it by Thursday.
I do not.
I know, I'll check by Thursday. Okay, so we have a divider right here. This is a block level div element, and the way that we're used to giving these divs specific styling is with the style attribute right here in the head, okay? Style, because it goes in the beginning attribute, we have to do every single time we want to style something differently, okay? So for example, if I wanted to put a border on here, I would set the border to have 1 pixel solid black, like this, because I need all 3 of these pieces in order for this div to be a little bit more visible on my page. Okay, so if I go to run this, you're gonna see just this black line right here because that's my divider, and it's not currently, it doesn't have any content in it right now. So it's just gonna show the style around the outside, okay? This right here is what's gonna become our Flexbox. And there's just a couple steps that we need to do in order to get it to that Flexbox state, okay? And in order for this to actually look like a container, we gotta put something inside of that container, because right now it's empty. So if I put some paragraphs by just typing the letter P and then hitting enter, because I know the tag for paragraph or for text is just the letter P, we're gonna call this child number 1. And then I'm gonna do that a couple more times. Enter, P, enter, child number 2. And then we'll do that one more time. Enter, P, enter, child number 3. And the reason I'm calling these children is because they are contained within their parent element of the div, all right? I can double click on my green restart right up here. Mine's at the top, but it's the little green circle arrow. And you're gonna see child 1, 2, and 3 are gonna stack up with each other because these are all block level elements, right? Paragraphs and divs both create their own line every time you call them, okay? This is default styling. There's a lot of things that are just in HTML that your computer assumes, even though I said a computer can't make an assumption or it can't make guesses. There's default coding that these look a specific way, okay? And I want to reiterate too, I don't want you guys memorizing every single tag. I don't want you memorizing every single default rule. What I want you to think about is what are the types of tags you're going to be using like 90 to 95% of the time. Get good at those. And then if you need to look up the other 5 to 10%, you know how, okay? I don't want you memorizing, I want you applying. Anyways, what we have right here is our div container with 3 children within it, and they're behaving like normal because they're all block level. Instead of writing style like this is the old way to write style. What I showed you last week is this thing called the style container, where we write specific CSS rules, okay? And I'm gonna show you how to do that because that's the next main step necessary in getting your Flexbox working, okay? We need a couple more containers because the more web design you do, the more you're going to realize that it's just containers on top of containers. Everything's stored inside of something else. Every function, kind of like the cells in your body, right? They have pieces inside of them that do specific things. It's all contained within each other. And the type of container that we need in order for this Flexbox to be really useful is a head container. Just like with us, the head is on top of the body. And so we're gonna have 2 containers that look like that inside of our HTML. So I'm gonna go towards the top here, right around line number 2 for me. And I'm just gonna type out, hi, thank you. I'm just gonna type out the word HEAD, head, and then hit enter and enter again. And this is gonna become my head container, okay? I'll get this out in just a second. I told you this a little bit last week or at some point later in the year. Remember, we can see each other's bodies. So everything inside of the body container is what your user is going to see on the internet. We cannot see inside of each other's heads. So stuff that you put inside of this head container, like the next tag I'm about to show you, which is style, S-T-Y-L-E, enter, enter. That's not going to become obviously visible like what we put inside of the body container will be. Okay? Something I want you to keep in mind while you're thinking about how to get these working in future projects. So if I add just a BODY, enter, I can either take all of my code that I want to be visible, all of my output that I want my user to see, and Control X to cut it, Control V to paste it, and it will all go inside of this body container. Or alternatively, you can type out BODY, hit enter, take just the end tag, so the one with the slash, Control X, and put it before your HTML end tag like this. Okay, so now we've got a head container for stuff storing like experiences, wisdoms, memories, things that are not going to be obviously visible to our user, just like what we have in our human heads. And then we have a body container that is visible to the outside world because it is physical, right? The reason I'm showing you all this is because this style container right here is going to create this div into a Flexbox, which is one of your requirements for this assignment. And I will help you individually with that during work time, okay? In order to turn this into a flexbox, we got to shift some of our specifics that we're giving the computer, okay? So instead of having this div have a style attribute, we're actually going to give it something called a class attribute, okay? So I'm going to go inside of the start tag of my div, remove the style from earlier, and add the word class, okay? Class equals, and then it will give us a little equals parentheses, or sorry, equals quotes like normal attributes, okay? This is something that I went over a little bit ago. When I set a class rule, like if I set a rule for fourth period, even though each you as students are all your own individual HTML element, you're still affected by the class rule because you're in the classroom, okay? I want you to remember it that way for the future. I also like my class names to be functional, but you can have them be whatever you want. You can have them be dog or cat breeds. You can have them be your siblings' names. You can have them be your favorite colors, right? You can have them be whatever you want, but I like mine to say what type of function they serve. And for this example, the function is a flexbox. Now I'm doing something interesting with how I'm typing out the name of the class by not adding a space. HTML doesn't love spaces. So there's a couple ways that you can get around it by either using capital letters to separate out your spaces. This is called camel case. Or if you don't like the way that looks, you can sub it in for a dash, a hyphen like this, or you can sub it in for an underscore like this. But it does not like just regular spaces. I don't know why, but it just doesn't. So we've got a class name of Flexbox here, but nothing's happening because we haven't told the computer specifically what a Flexbox does. And we're going to do that up here in the style container, okay? To recap your steps, you need a container with a specific class that has children, right? Child 1, 2, and 3. Next, inside of your head of your HTML, you need a style container that currently doesn't have anything in it. And your flex, whatever you're trying to set to a flexbox, need to have that class of flexbox on it, okay? Now, in order to connect these two things together, in order for our box to start actually flexing, we need to tell inside of the style box what flexbox does. Because a computer, we've told it to do something, and the instructions don't exist. So if I tell you to do something, and then I don't give you any instructions, you don't know what to do, right? Or you don't have to do anything because there's no instructions. When you write something called a CSS rule, a cascading style sheet, the cascading part, think about like a waterfall where it like rolls down across the document. They need 3 major parts. These are some vocab words you're going to hear me say a lot throughout the semester, and I'll leave them in here so you can see it later. Those 3 main parts are a selector, and then curly brackets like this, the yellow ones with the little line. Inside of that container, you need something called properties, and you need something called values, okay? Now I know that you've already used these before, but you maybe didn't know their like official government name, okay? These are the 3 required pieces, the 3 required ingredients in order for your thing to have a flexbox, okay? Another thing I want you to remember, when you're using a class, or you're setting a classroom rule, as your selector, all classes have periods, right? You have up to 6 other periods at school here. And when you're writing a class rule, you start it with a period because all classes have periods, okay? Now I'm still inside of my style container. This example right up here is not doing anything, so I'm actually going to comment it out. I'll show you that a little bit later. All classes have periods, and they have to match exactly to what I put them in as the HTML. So in this case, it's flex box. And then a curly bracket, enter, okay? We've got our selector. We've now told the computer what we want to look at for the specific type of style that is to create a flex box, okay? Properties are the thing that you are changing. The most common property you've probably used is color, background color, text size, right? If you remember back to Flexbox Froggy, you wrote a lot of properties about how you wanted to align the frogs. The property is the thing that you are changing. And in this case, the thing that we are changing is called display. So I'm going to type out display. And then when I'm done with my property, I add a colon. Okay, that's 2 dots. In doing those two dots, you're going to see a bunch of different values or a bunch of different options that we could set this property to. Okay? The value part is the actual setting that you're changing it to, the specifics. A great example is a tag is the selector, it's the thing we're looking at. Color is the property, it's the thing that we're changing. And blue is the value, it's the thing we're changing it to specifically. Okay? And in this case, very simply, we're just going to use flex right here. And then when we're done with our rule, we add a semicolon, the one with the comma, right after that. So we have our selector, and because all classes have periods, we're setting this to a specific class rule called flexbox. Then some curly brackets. Let me add a space so you can see that a little bit better. The property, the thing that we're changing specifically, is how these items display. And the value, the specific setting that we're changing the properties to, is called flex. And what flex does is it takes the available space and divides it however you tell it to. And I'm going to give it a couple more properties and values here in just a second inside of my style container right here. So if I click on my refresh button after I hold Control S to save, and I go back to my output here, you're going to see child 1, 2, and 3 are going to just line up with each other right next to each other. They're going to start behaving like they're in line, even though they're paragraphs, even though they're not. Okay? The cool part about a class rule is it doesn't matter how many children or how many students are inside of that classroom, the rule affects them evenly. Okay? So for example, if I wanted to add a border around my flexbox, so you can see it a little bit easier in the example, or your users can find it a little bit more easily on your wiki, the property that you change is border, and border has a 3-part value. You need a size. I'm going to do 1 pixel. You need a style. I'm going to do solid, which is just a regular solid line. And you need a color. And I'm going to do, let's do blue, like I mentioned, if I could spell it right, blue. Okay? Now, if I refresh and go back to my output, you're going to see my flexbox has that blue border. And another really useful property and value that you can use is justify content. Okay? Like I mentioned, coding doesn't love spaces. Especially older computers, they don't have the capacity to see how these spaces like happen. Okay? So if we go justify, if I start typing it out, you're going to see anytime there's a space, it's separated by a hyphen, like this. So if I go justify content, like I'm spelling out right here, I've got a bunch of different options here. I'm going to go space around. It's the one I find to be the most visually appealing while you're understanding how to put these flex boxes together. Okay? So justify content space around. And when I go back to my output here, you're going to see child 1, 2, and 3 have taken their available space and divided it evenly across each other. Okay? And at its basic level, we've configured a flexbox. What the flexbox does, why it's called flex, is because as your viewport changes size, viewport's another word for the browser window. So this guy right here is my viewport. Hi. As your viewport changes size, it's going to do a little bit of math to keep those 3 children in the right relationship, as you can see right here with the space. And if we go down to about a phone size, so imagine this is, I'm looking at my phone, child 1, 2, and 3 still have a little bit of breathing room around each other, so they're not as scrunched together. Okay? That's the most common benefit of doing things in a flexbox instead of trying to position them manually. Because then the computer's doing the thinking. Depending on the different viewports you have, maybe you're looking at a TV size viewport, maybe you're looking at a car dashboard size viewport, maybe you're looking at a tablet size viewport. The computer's doing the math for us, which is especially nice for me because I'm terrible at math. Okay? I understand that that was a lot of content, but I want to show you a little bit more about how these children can react so that you have a good set of code to adjust as necessary, and you can also see in a little bit of a different way how a flexbox works and how it comes together. Okay? The next thing that I want to show you is what happens when you have too many children inside of a single flexbox and there's not enough space, right? Let's imagine our classroom has 200 kids in it. It's going to be pretty packed, right? we're going to have to change how the classroom looks or how the classroom behaves in order to accommodate all of those students. And what I'm going to do is show you how to leave quick comments again. This will be end of first example. So I'm just typing this out like regular text, but when I have it on its own line, as you can see on number 29 right here, if I hold the control button and hit slash, it will turn it into this green comment and remove it from something called the stack order. So even though there's text in there, because we've left it as a comment, like a little note on our map as we're exploring, it's not going to show up for the user. It's just a little hidden annotation. You can think about it like annotating your code. So what I'm going to do now is add a couple of containers into my Flexbox right here. I'm going to overpack this classroom. I'm going to put more students than there are enough room inside of this classroom, and we'll change it a little bit later. Okay, so I'm going to do a couple more paragraphs. We'll go overcrowded 1. And because I've already written this code, I can just click on the number, Control C, Control V, V, V. I don't have to write all that out every time, and all I have to do is change the numbers to be 1, 2, 3, 4. And then let's add a couple headings in here as well. H1, we'll just call H1. H2, which we'll just call H2. And then H3, which we'll call H3. Okay? So now we have too many students inside of our classroom, and it's not going to have the right amount of room. So if I save and refresh, you're going to see everything's getting really packed. Even already at the tablet-sized viewport, especially if we go down to the phone-sized viewport, we're actually losing content now. It's overflowing, it's not visible, it's inaccessible to our user. The benefit of having this Flexbox rule is we can change that behavior with a single line of code instead of trying to unbreak lines 31 through 36, okay? And the single line of code that you need lives inside of your CSS rule. So we're gonna set a new classroom rule by going to where the classroom rules live, .flexbox, and we're gonna change the flex wrap. You can see as I type out flex, there's gonna be a couple different options here. We wanna change the flex wrap, this third option, and we wanna set it to specifically wrap, okay? Wrap with a W, like what you could get at the sandwich store. By setting our flex wrap to be true, basically we're saying, yes, we want this to wrap, and we go back to our output here. Now, all of those students inside of this classroom, even though the classroom's gotten smaller, are being affected by space around. And they maintain the original order that we put them in. Just like when you section your specific information for your wiki page, you lay it out in a way that makes sense to be read, you put it in a specific order, right? And it's still gonna flex just like it normally did beforehand. This is a little bit full. This is quite a few things to have in a Flexbox, but that's okay because we have the space around. They're gonna give as much space around each other as necessary. But watch what happens as I start to resize my viewport, okay? As we're getting smaller, you're gonna see the H3 is gonna try to go to a new line, just like some of our paragraphs are doing, okay? So the H3 has dropped down to a new line because we set the flex wrap to be true, to wrap. H2 is gonna join it, H1 is gonna join it, as our viewport gets smaller and smaller. Overcrowded 4 is stepped down. Overcrowded 3 is going to step down. Overcrowded 2 is coming down, and it's getting a little busy. So our Flexbox is going to continue to wrap and wrap and wrap until we get back to around a phone size, and the computer's doing all the math for us. So we don't have to do this part manually. And this is the general sort of gist that I want you to know about Flexboxes. All right, we'll get more in depth on it later in the year, but this is how you can see it working inside of the Flex space, excuse me. And you can see it, how it affects all of the children of a single container, okay? So that being said, let me leave another comment right down here. We'll call this end of second example. And then I'm gonna hold Control and press slash to turn that into a comment so that it removes it from something called the stack order. Okay, how I'm gonna wrap this up before I put this video out and before I put this code out for you to copy and paste and retool as necessary. A vocab word I'm gonna say a lot throughout the year, so you don't have to have it memorized right now, is something called stack order. All right. Now, what the stack order does, because we're writing a recipe for our computer, it's going to follow it step by step, starting at step 1 and going to, in my case, step number 41. That being said, wherever you put your elements, they're going to render, which is another word for show up, just like if you've taken anything in TV Pro, SPTV, animation, graphic design, any of those other type of CTE classes. When something renders, you can do it in Studio Art too, it adds detail or it shows up, right? Because we have our div down at the bottom here, starting at line 26, that means all of our anchors are going to load. All of our other stuff above that is going to load because it's first in the stack order. The last thing I'll have you think about with stack order is when you add a comment to something, it removes it from the stack order. Think about turning these into ghosts. All right, so line number 30 was previously text that would get rendered in the stack order because we told the computer to render it. But because we turned it into a comment, we've kind of done the Doctor Strange, like, where it like kicks the soul out of the person. They go out of body. That's what happened with these two right here. Okay, they've been removed from the stack order, and they, by extension, will not render in the final product. Okay? Hopefully, let's get rid of this Latin. Hopefully, this makes Flexboxes have a little bit more sense. I know this is a lot of yap, and I know you have specific questions that I'll help you with. But this is what I want you to see Flexbox-wise, and I want you to think about how you can apply it to your specific wiki page. The minimum requirement is 1 Flexbox with at least 3 children. So if you retool mine and you get it working, you will have met that requirement for the project, but you are more than welcome to have more. And you are more than welcome to see how they work when you start stacking them and stacking them and stacking them on top of each other. You know how like if you point 2 mirrors at each other and then you try to take a picture, it's like an infinite mirror tunnel? That can happen with HTML too. So if you keep stacking, unstacking, and stacking, and stacking, it might create some interesting results. Okay. That being said, I appreciate y'all hanging out because that was a lot of me talking. What I want to do now is help you with your specific questions. Assist you as necessary. I'll get all this code put out so you can copy it and work with it on your own computer. I do want to show you, actually I forgot, really quick how to zip your folders if you're ready for that. If you're ready to submit your page, let me show you how to do that. The first thing you'll need to do is actually close VS Code. So you definitely want to go File, Save As, or Save All if you've made multiple changes. Mine's grayed out currently because I haven't made multiple changes. But I want to save my work so I don't lose it. And I'm going to go into my File Explorer and zip this folder up so that it's ready to upload to Canvas. Okay? So I'm going to go to Files. Mine lives in my OneDrive right here. So I'm going to click on this OneDrive destination. And then we're looking at project number 2. Which we're first gonna left click on so that it's selected with our pointer finger, and then right click on it with your middle finger until you see something that either says compress to a zip file, like you can see on my screen right here, or something like send to a compressed/zipped folder. Those are 2 different ways. Because the way that Windows is made, sometimes there's a couple different names for the same feature. But generally what you're looking for is compressing your folder, creating an archive, or sending it to a zipped folder. Once you do that, compress to zip file, you don't have to do anything else because it's going to automatically add it right down here with the little zipper icon. You just hit enter, and then this file with the zipper across it. Let me see if I can make it bigger for y'all. Sorry, I got a bunch of stuff in my OneDrive. This file right here is going to be what we upload to Canvas because it's got the zipper across it. All right. And we'll do that real quick on project 2 so you can see exactly what it looks like. Drag file here. I'm going to go to my OneDrive, find the project number 2 with the zipper on it, and I named it nicely because I can tell I started it on the 9th. Open that up, wait for it to upload, and then we can submit. Okay, I'm going to help you with your specific questions now. I'm going to copy and paste this code as well so you can see it in resources just like you could see on Tuesdays. And if I'm still not making sense, give Tuesday's video a try. If Tuesday's video is still not helping you, then we can talk in like a flex time and I can help you more specifically. Okay? Does this make sense? Show me on your thumbs where you're at with Flexboxes, up, side, or down. It's okay. It's all good. Takes a while. It takes a lot of practice. So yeah, let me get this all put out. Then I can help you with your specific questions. And give me just a second to do that. Thank y'all.